You're a big boy. I thought you might enjoy being picked on. The ladies, please.
Thank you again for the
You're welcome, man.
Congratulations.
I think it's 9 months. You know what? It's having time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not real fond of the chip system anyway.
I stopped. I wrote down when I got sober, but I haven't been keeping track of it.
I'm not real fond of the chip system anyway because I always feel like the big book told me 1 day at a
I
time.
liked when I picked up my bride the other day.
Oh, you're going to start right away?
If you don't have the language of the article, you might want to try to find somebody who has one and buddy up with it. We're going to be studying an article in this book. If you don't know this book, this is a compilation of all of the writings of Bill Wilson for the Grapevine from 1944 through 1968. And it contains material you find nowhere else in any literature. It's a very valuable book. I personally consider it to be the second most valuable book in our literature. Okay, let's open the meeting with a moment of silent meditation. We'll say the Serenity Prayer together. Thank you. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. They may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting to our own contributions. And AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. And I wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And let's see, who's going to read chapter 5 for us tonight? Who's got your big book there? Janelle?
What page is that?
Page 58, 5-8.
Our order. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually, those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunate. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. As some of these we walked, we always could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol. Coming back was powerless. Without help is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May He find him now. Half measures avail us nothing. We put it returning for you. We ask His protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested in the program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, as we understood Him. 4, made searching 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, calmly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down on guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would restore us.
Good. Thank you very much, Chanel. There was an article suggested to me before the meeting, and I agreed to it, but I changed my mind. And because there's something that has been coming up over and over again, and I thought maybe it would be well for us to see if we could take a look at this problem tonight. Turn to page 222. It's an article written by Bill Wilson in 1958, titled "Problems Other Than Alcohol." And before I forget it, and this is an aside only for Paul, on page 223 is the statement which I've been trying to find for you, the third paragraph. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of an AA group. I knew it was in there, but I couldn't find that sucker. There it is. Anybody disputes that proposition, it's right there. Okay, this is a biting issue today. Pardon?
What was the question? What was the dispute?
Someone was disputing that we don't teach anybody anything, that we can't be teachers.
We hear that all. The usual thing is said very snidely. There are no teachers in AA.
Only students.
And that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, on page 222, perhaps there is no suffering more horrible than drug addiction, especially that kind which is produced by morphine, heroin, and other narcotics. Such drugs twist the mind, and the awful process of withdrawal racks the sufferer's body. Compared with the addict and his woes, we alcoholics are pikers. Barbiturates carried to extremes can be almost as bad. In AA, we have members who have made great recoveries from both the bottle and the needle. We also have a great many others who were, or still are, victimized by goofballs and even by the new tranquilizers. Consequently, this problem of drug addiction in several forms lies close to us all. It stirs our deepest interest and sympathy. In the world around us, we see legions of men and women who are trying to cure or to escape their problems by this means. Many AAs, especially those who have suffered these particular addictions, are now asking, what can we do about drugs within our fellowship and without? Because several projects to help pill and drug users are already afloat, projects which use AA's 12 steps in which AA members are active, there has arisen a whole series of questions as to how these efforts, already meeting with not a little success, can be rightly related to the AA groups and to AA as a whole? There's a bunch of questions here. Let's hop over down to the bottom of page 222. While some of these questions almost answer themselves, others do not. But all of them, I think, can readily be resolved to the satisfaction of everyone if we have a good look at the AA traditions which apply, and another look at our long experience with the special purpose groups in which AAs are active today, both within and without our society. Now, there are certain things that AA cannot do for anybody, regardless of what our several desires or sympathies may be. Our first duty as a society is to ensure our own survival. Therefore, we have to avoid the distractions and multi-purpose activity. An AA group as such cannot take on all the personal problems of its members, let alone the problems of the whole world. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of an AA group. Groups have repeatedly tried other activities and they have always failed. It has also been learned that there is no possible way to make non-alcoholics into AA members. We have to confine our membership to alcoholics, and we have to confine our AA groups to a single purpose. If we don't stick to these principles, we shall almost surely collapse. And if we collapse, we cannot help anyone. To illustrate, let's review some typical experiences. Years ago, we hoped to give AA membership to our families and to certain non-alcoholic friends who had been greatly helpful. They had their problems too, and we wanted them in our fold. Regretfully, we found that this was impossible. They couldn't make straight AA talks, nor, save a few exceptions, could they identify with new AA members. Hence, they couldn't do continuous 12-step work. Close to us as these folks were, good folks were, we had to deny them membership. We could only welcome them at our open meetings. Therefore, I see no way of making non-alcoholic addicts into AA members. Experience says loudly we can admit no exceptions, even though drug users and alcoholics happen to be the first cousins of a sort. If we persist in trying this, I'm afraid it will be hard on the drug user himself as well as on AA. We must accept the fact that no non-alcoholic, whatever his affliction, can be converted into an alcoholic AA member. And he talks about special purpose groups and so on. And let's go down to the bottom of page 225. Certainly, there's this third paragraph in the bottom. There is every good reason for interested AAs to join with outside groups working on the narcotic problem, provided the traditions of anonymity and of no endorsements are respected. In conclusion, I want to say that throughout AA's history, most of our special purpose groups have accomplished very wonderful things. There is great reason to hope that those AAs who are now working in the grim regions of narcotic addiction will achieve equal success. In AA, the group has strict limitations, but the individual has scarcely any. Remembering to observe the traditions of anonymity and non-endorsement, the AA member can carry AA's message into every troubled area of this very troubled world. Now, there's one thing that I think we need to point out, just by way of clarification perhaps, on page 22 in the big book, if you've got it there. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. And so one of the things that's happening today, and I'll just make a couple of comments and then turn it over for discussion. The situation since 1958 has changed radically. almost, and this is my opinion, my experience, almost nobody comes in the door anymore who's a pure alcoholic, unless they're an old geezer like me and never got hooked on drugs. But almost everybody who's in younger categories have had some drugs in their story, and sometimes a whole bunch of drugs. And it used to be that the old timers would sit around and count the andas when somebody said, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. They would mumble to themselves, there are only 6 andas here tonight, and that kind of stuff. That's pretty much gone by the boards. One of the critical questions is not does AA survive with addicts hanging around with us, but does AA survive without them? How many people coming in that door are going to be pure alcoholics in the sense that they may have had a few drugs to taper off or something, but other than that their problem has been strictly alcohol. And I submit to you that except in some backwoods regions, if you went to South Alabama, you wouldn't find very many drug addicts there, but in any metropolitan area, you're going to find just about everybody has drugs and alcohol in their story. And how do we differentiate, and how do we justify, in light of the tradition which says that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and that you are a member when you say you are? How in the world do we go about fulfilling this what Bill Wilson's writing about back here in 1958? I'm not sure we can, but I'd sure like to hear your take on this. Yes, Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug I understand that alcohol is ether, and ether is a drug, and my drugs that I use are opiates, which are painkillers, which is also a drug. Alcohol is ether, it is a drug. I couldn't relate it to a bunch of people were saying how they smoke crack and stuff like that, so, because I've never been there. I'm not used to sharing either,
Well, that's okay. We're glad that you're doing it.
But alcohol is a drug. I mean, that is the fact. Alcohol is ether. Ether is a drug.
Okay. There is a basic distinction. Maybe we better get this said right up front. What we are talking about are narcotics which are addictive in and of themselves. In other words, anybody who uses narcotics to any great extent is liable to become addicted to them. They are addictive to every human being who uses them. Alcohol is not. We can say that any synthetic substance could be a drug, but of course a lot of drugs are natural substances as well. I'm not sure that we want to try to categorize everything as a drug, because there doesn't seem to be any point in it. If we call them all drugs, but some of them are addictive and alcohol is not, because not everybody gets addicted to alcohol who drinks it. Only alcoholics.
It's like my cigarettes though. I had a neighbor who smoked a cigarette a couple times a week. To me, that's weird. And I understand there's people who do that. They can be non-addictive. I'm real for everything. I don't think a normal person would put 40 or 50 pills down their mouth a day.
Oh, no doubt.
It's different if he was in the hospital, broke a leg, and was given drugs for a little while to get through it.
Okay. Well, Kimberly raises a very...
That's my opinion. I mean, I know nothing.
No, listen, you raised a very, very valid point. Who would like to share now?
My name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. I've been reading a lot about what alcohol does to the body. I'm in the medical profession, so it interests me what alcohol actually does to the body. When alcohol, the way I understand it, I'm not the either, but the way I understand it is the difference between alcohol and narcotics. The alcohol is also sensuous. And our bodies use it, the alcohol, And there's where the physiological part of the disease comes in, because our bodies get used to using the alcohol for food, for energy, whereas with a drug, with a narcotic, it's not used for food. There's a difference between narcotics and alcohol. Alcohol is not really it's a drug, but it's like a drug, a middle class. I mean, there's a line there. And alcohol is separate by itself. Because
that's why it's not a controlled substance. It is not addictive.
It is not addictive.
And Kimberly's right. Alcohol is either the same chemical compound, but with the addition of H2O, water. And it is absorbed in many ways by the healthy body, and it will affect the brain, but it does not cause addiction except to those who have the allergy to it. So there is that distinction. I believe that's a valid distinction. Yes.
Yeah, I love this topic. I was listening. My name is Brian. I'm a member of AA. I was listening to Bill W. give a speech one time. Paul gave it a CD, and he said something that made so much sense to me. I brought it up in a meeting the other time. Like, we develop skin cancer because we go on the beach and we abuse our skin, and then we cross the line. We got skin cancer. It's a disease by the medical committee society. Same thing. He said that we're not really born with this. We cross a line, and once we become obsessive, we've developed a disease, and you're fucked. Excuse my language. You're screwed after that. Because every time you drink a beer, you can't stop. Same thing with pills or any kind of narcotics. I've known people that smoke crack and stopped, they coke and stopped, and now they have families and they just don't do it anymore. And there's people, like, the definition of alcoholics in this big book. There's 3 different definitions, 3 different types of alcoholics. There's people who get put on OxyContin because they're in the hospital and they become addicted to it, but then they seem to make a big deal about it. They get help and they're fine afterwards. But then there's people that cross the line, like you and I, and we took 40 pills a day. We developed an obsession. Once you develop an obsession, you develop the disease of alcoholism, and you need a spirit. You spiritually bankrupt, and you need to get God between you and the Bill W.
In other words, Bill came to a place where he denied the existence of the allergy.
Well, no, he says you develop the allergy just like you develop skin cancer on the beach.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see that.
He says you drink it, you abuse it, and then you become obsessed, and then you develop an allergy where it's an obsession. It's just like do you understand that?
Well, no,
Actually, that CD, it's a CD
first time.
that actual CD, I don't know for sure whether that's actually him or not, because, well, the person who gave me that CD is contacting somebody in New York to find out if it's a real CD of him. It could have been somebody that made it up.
Well, that one about Debbie's death?
Yeah.
That's a fake.
Yeah, I thought it could be.
Doesn't that make sense, though? Like how you go in the...
See, we had a hand up over here first, and I'll get to everybody. Over here?
Yeah, man, he's not an alcoholic. To stray from the medical part of it, narcotic being addictive, alcohol being addictive, but as far as the evolution of AA is concerned, I don't know the whole story, but I just know for me, like, alcohol was my least favorite thing. I was a street junkie. I shot speedballs and smoked crack. Did this since I was like 15 years old, but I used alcoholically when I would drink. Like, even though it was my least favorite thing, like if I drank beer, I would certainly, kill as much alcohol, inside. But, a lot of people talk about, they're not alcoholics, but they come to AA, but they smoke crack or whatever. They can't relate. Now, maybe I'm fortunate. I could relate to the alcoholic stories, the feelings, exactly the way they used, felt, and the destruction caused in their lives and other people's lives around them. And the reason why I chose AA was because of the fact that a lot of people I came to really respect and follow, when they would tell me their stories, they weren't just alcoholics either. They did the heroin, they did the crack, they did everything else. And, I saw a lifestyle change with And these people I'm talking about are very strict with exactly how it was written and doing exactly the way the book says, none of that human solution crafting. And their lives have totally changed to where when I heard their story, I was shocked that it was that person sitting there, considering, you know, they told me they were living on the streets and were going to the methadone clinic every day. So I saw in other places like that personality change hadn't occurred, where people were still like they were on the corners, except they didn't have a needle. So I was attracted to the AA for that reason, because I wanted to, you know, I wanted to better my life and become a different person. And like I never had any trick as far as, oh well, you know, heroin is my main thing, so I can't work the steps. I think of it as all. I'm powerless over all chemicals or things. I'm grateful people aren't, you know, I guess snobby, so to speak, to where they wouldn't not act. Because I honestly don't think I'd be clean today if I wasn't involved in these rules of AA. And I think everything does evolve. And I believe for me the steps, and I guess Bill said that in there. I wasn't paying attention that well. But, you know, I think the AA steps within the big book can be related to all the problems. And obviously, because they use it for like, you know, over like 200 different
Well, that's a good point. He doesn't articulate it, but I think what he's saying is that an alcoholic would have a very difficult time 12-stepping a narcotics addict, because one of the main requirements of doing 12-step work with somebody new is that they can identify with you, or you can identify with them, in order to gain the credibility necessary for them to be willing to take the next step. And I think it's quite true that an alcoholic like me, I never tried to 12-step an addict. But once they've taken their first step, I got no problem working with them on all the rest of the steps. They're all the same.
No, I agree with you, and that's what was kind of you were reading today at the 1:30. But it's evolved to the point where now there are plenty of people in AA who do have that ability. Like I could go to a heroin addict and he'll relate to my story.
Oh, absolutely. Your point's well taken. And John, then we'll get to you next.
I'm John, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, John.
But my major problem was heroin my whole life. But I am an alcoholic. When we had this situation pop up at a men's group, the man raised his hand and he wouldn't identify himself as an alcoholic. So they asked him to leave. And I got pissed off. So I told them, get back in the meeting and sit down. If they have a problem with that, tell them to talk to me. Because the tradition that everybody keeps on is the desire to stop drinking. Now, who's to say that that addict doesn't have a desire to stop drinking? Are we going to start playing God? Which brings up a little sentence that I always, every time this subject, I love this subject, because every time it comes up, one little sentence pops up to me. What would the master do? And for me, and I think I've come a long way in this program, I'm not sure. I noticed lots of changes. It taught me God.
You don't applaud the leader, though.
It taught me God, it taught me tolerance, and it taught me willingness. So if people tolerate somebody not announcing themselves as an alcoholic, and we all have the willingness to change the word. Alcoholic, addict, what's the big deal? We're here to help. And that's what I got out of it. And I'm sure that God, I'm not sure, but I think that God's not sitting up there and saying, that's right, throw that guy out of that meeting, because he won't announce himself as an alcoholic. So all you guys in the men group, get him out of there. I think not. So for me, I've learned enough willingness and tolerance that I'm going to help. I don't care what they are. And at a meeting, I don't know where all the willingness and the tolerance in the God aspect of this program is like going with when they like throw somebody out, and they could be sitting in here saving their lives. I don't care what they are. Councilor, let me share.
No, thanks, John. There isn't any place in the big book, nowhere,
Nowhere.
says we are to announce ourselves in alcoholics. What does it say though? In the Accord of the First Edition, we're only required to announce ourselves as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's what the big book says. Nowhere to say we have to announce ourselves as alcoholics. Now groups, however, are autonomous. And they have a right to set any rules they want, so long as they don't interfere with other groups or AA as a whole. If you're a member of that group and you are unhappy with what that group is doing, then the idea is to bring it to group conscience and let God have His way with the group. That's the way we do it.
Or just not go to that meeting anymore.
Oh, well, that's another thing. Yes, sir.
I'm an alcoholic from Brad.
Hey, Brad.
First, I want to read the sentence that stuck out in my head. In AA, the group has strict limitations, but the individual has scarcely any. Remember to observe the conditions of anonymity of non-endorsements. The AA member can carry AA's message to every troubled area of this very troubled world. Now, every meeting I've ever gone to, somebody said something that I knew I needed to be at that meeting. And, if I was to look at this meeting before I got to this meeting a couple days ago, I was like, well, how's this going to apply to me? But it did, because on the way here, I actually got here originally, and I dropped somebody off that wanted to go to another meeting, dropped them off, and afterwards, I had the worst feeling. I mean, I wanted to get high on drugs, on narcotics, and real bad. I mean, to the point where I was figuring out how much money I had. Okay, and then I said, let me get to this meeting. I already planned on coming to this meeting tonight, and on the way to this meeting, I was like, oh man, it's an AA meeting. I'm not going to be able to discuss anything with drugs, And that was the whole thing I was thinking about. I'm going to have to pull somebody out on the side afterwards and not talk about this. And exactly this is what the meetings are. And that's exactly what happened tonight. And so once again, I got what I needed out of the meeting.
Oh, good, Brad.
And I didn't use, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything.
We're glad you're here. Hope you keep coming back. We have a lot of fun. It's a free swinging thing, We don't have any rules around here. You get to share as the Spirit moves you, and as many times as you like. In the back is our friend Tom.
My name is Thomas, and I'm alcoholic. And the thing is, when we look at this, Father Martin says what causes problems is a problem. Whether it be the alcohol or the drugs as the catalyst, or underneath it is the ism, the me. And the problem is, whatever it is in me that's blocking me from the right path to God is what's wrong. I understand why a group would ask a person not to discuss narcotics at an AA meeting, or if a person insisted that he was not an alcoholic, because if we then had that, then a person who had an eating disorder could bring that into a meeting. There has to be an understanding that the persons that are at that meeting have a maintenance. The primary purpose of our program is to help another alcoholic and ourselves. But the thing that's most important is that, because just like it said in the article, and what you had said, Jim, in our world, the reality is that most people are duly addicted, but the addiction is not the booze and the drugs. The addiction is our own selfishness and our own self-centeredness and our own idiocy that's blocked us from God. So yes, they should have let the guy stay, maybe, but what you have to be vigilant about is that, and I think this is the history of the program, has taught us that we have to also be always looking forward to, or looking at the idea that we can get distracted. And I'm sure everyone here has been in a meeting where someone was talking about something totally off the wall, and no one got anything because it became an argument over whether this should or should not be a meeting. I was at one where the guy was drunk. Now, where I'm from in Illinois, if a person comes in drunk, 2 or 3 guys take him in the back room. They don't beat him up. They talk to him, but they let the meeting go on about whatever topic or whatever's going on. And as far as I'm concerned, underneath, as I said, is our isms. And what I've got from Jim is the whole focus of coming is to find out what in me is blocking me or letting me use drugs or alcohol or anger or lust to keep me from God. And that's the focus underneath, or the reason why I come is to find out more simple tools to make me clean my windshield so I can see God's light clearly. And I believe when we get into Buddhism, when people worship human beings, and they're still controlled people, and when a person says you can't say that at a meeting, that's like telling an alcoholic not to go ahead and not breathe. Can't means can't. For me, the dilemma is always what you said, John, tolerance. The absolutely wrong thing in my mind would be not to go to that meeting. The meeting would be to go there and bring that up when they do their group conscience and say, hey, what about this? And see what these other guys say, and I bet you find an answer. But we've run all our lives. So when the meeting doesn't go the way I want it, does not mean I go to the meeting. I go to the people that are in charge of that meeting and say, maybe, because your job is to help him change. And his job is to help you change, meaning change in the direct light of God, in tolerance and love. The tolerance for me is tolerating this idiot, and the love is for everybody else. To give myself time to change, and the love is for everyone else. And I think that's what you're doing, John. You're loving that person, but at the same time, you also have to tolerate yourself, and that your view is experienced by those drugs and some of those other people. Let's face it, they're fearful. They're fearful that they're not going to quote at their meeting. But that's because they're not there yet. They're not as open as you are. So don't, for the love of one, cut off the others. Tell them about it. That's what it's about. When you see someone being small or pinheaded, tell him he's a pinhead. Nicely.
Thank you very much, Tom. Kimberly, you have something more you'd like to share? Just go ahead.
I'm still Kimberly. I'm still an alcoholic and drug addict. And drugs are also my food as much as alcohol is my food for me. I just, out of respect that this is just my opinion, that they should stick to AA because that's part of, what the traditions are and all that, that it should be, everything should be stuck to alcoholism, that if it says I drug instead of I drank, that I should say pick up when I lose. Do you know what I mean? To respect, not to, I try not to say the drugs too much, other than that I'm a drug addict and I'm an alcoholic. Because I can see where, even though I'm dual, I can see where a lot of people couldn't relate to that. Just like I said, I couldn't relate to people smoking crack. But I can relate to any alcoholic because I'm also alcoholic. But I can see where that could hurt it. If people were talking about drugs all the time, instead of saying pick stop or use, I can see where that could hurt me. I can see both sides of it. So that's why, like I said, I would say use, pick up.
That is the dilemma, Kimberly, that there are two sides to it.
Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I can relate to using a substance to escape reality, but I cannot relate to doing hard crime to escape reality. Some drug addicts I've seen that like $200 a day habit. All I have to do is go to the grocery store and get a bottle of extract off the table, if I need it that bad. I don't have to commit crimes to get my fix. So there is a difference. And what I've seen, every AA meeting I've ever been to, I've been part of, has gone through this addict, alcoholic thing, And what I've seen, this is just my opinion, what I've seen is that okay, we let the addicts in, and okay, you're an alcoholic addict, and then they think they're different. And there's 3 words will get any alcoholic drunk. I am different. And period. That's good.
Howard, did that remember?
Yeah, interesting subject. And one of the things that I heard a couple of weeks ago that I'd like to share with the group, as whether alcohol is the problem or drugs are the problem, like we said before, those are the solution to the acronym FEAR, which I've heard others say, stop everything and run. And that's what we do with different substances, whether it be drugs or whether it be alcohol. And both those substances have a central effect and a peripheral effect. Alcohol in the liver can be burned for calories, and so it has a peripheral effect on us. That's why it causes so many physiologic problems and it screws up the liver. But the central effect for alcohol is the dulling of sensations, etc. And the same thing with the narcotics. They're very lipid soluble, and in the brain that's where they preferentially work, and so they screw up all sorts of different systems, thinking, coordination, motion, everything. But I've seen that, I happen to believe that when people drink, and we have the craving that they referred to in the big book from, the 40s, I guess, when it was written, and 50s. And now the physiologic effects that people have with the narcotics, I see as very similar to the same thing. They called it a craving in the 30s and 40s, but now medical science has really progressed a lot in the last 60 or 70 years. But you do need more and more of the substance to be able to see any of the effects, and that's what a physiologic addiction is. I'm still confused about the psychological addiction. I believe that the craving that we speak about with alcohol and with shooting up drugs is very similar, because drug addicts, and I have not shot drugs, can't identify with that so much, but when people do that, boy, they're off on a run, and it's the same thing with alcohol. Cannot touch it. Otherwise, they know better, they know what the consequences are going to be, they know what price they're going to have to pay, and so I see them as being similar, and I'd like to hear anybody else who may be able to tell me otherwise. But years ago when this was written, the people who were the leaders, who were the teachers, just as you're doing right now, didn't have any experience with drugs. And I think that's a big part of the problem, or the transition, if you will, as the world has changed over the last 50 years. That as people become masters in understanding what is in the big book and putting it together with what's going on from a drug addict standpoint or an alcoholic standpoint, we're going to have teachers into the future who will be able to teach the message, which is essentially the same. I just think it's going to go through a transitional period where it's going to be chaotic for a while, but then it will come out.
Well, that's already true today. The message is the same message for everybody. The problem is gaining the trust and confidence of the person who's brand new, who's looking for a solution. That's where the problem lies, because we must establish our bona fides, our credibility. We know what we're talking about, because otherwise it's very unlikely that they're even going to want to listen to it. So the first thing we do with somebody who's new is we tell them our own story. And being able to tell our story is the bottom line in establishing something with the new person that they may want what we have and be willing to do something about it, you see. So, and if I cannot tell you you're a drug addict, and I cannot tell you my story as a drug addict, it may very well be that you will look at that as if we have nothing in common. It's so what? I can tell you my story as an alcoholic, and you perhaps can't identify with that at all, so that I'm not able to help you to get started. But once you've established your first step in your powerlessness over the drugs, then I can help you, because the rest of the program is exactly the same. It should be. There's spiritual principles here that never change. There's something else that Tom brought up that's very important to understand, and that is that alcohol and drugs and overeating and all these other things are but symptoms of the underlying disease. The underlying disease is spiritual bankruptcy. That's the problem. And the big book makes this very clear for us, that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we then straighten out mentally and physically. And I've worked with hundreds of that, and I never took a drug in my life. But I never tried to 12-step with it at first. But after that, it's been no problem at all, because the 12-step worked fine. You had a hand back there, yes?
My name is Ron, I'm an alcoholic. We, back home when I first started, so we had, plenty of issues regarding that. And, I think one of the things that, a lot of people fail to realize and understand is if you go back to the original text of the Blue Book, in the back, Dr. Bob and Bill talk about and share how they not only were helping alcoholics, but people who were alcoholics and others that had issues with other things. When you research that more thoroughly, the other things were drugs. Okay? And if you really want to get technical and you look at it honestly, alcohol is a drug. A drug is anything that alters or changes the instability of the mind and the mood. And I mean, I've been in plenty of meetings where people who were drug addicts came in and said, yeah, I am so-and-so, I'm an addict. My feeling is my opinion, hey, there may be something in that particular meeting that that individual is sitting in on that they may end up hearing that may be the one thing that enables them to turn around and make that decision to say, okay, I've had enough, I'm ready to have a change of life. And yet, who are we, honestly, to turn around and pass judgment on that individual and tell that individual that they're honestly not welcome here because they're quote-unquote a drug addict and not the quote-unquote alcoholic?
Well, this article that we were reading does not talk about being welcome at meetings. It talks about being a member of AA. That was the distinction that Bill was trying to make. And as a matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, you're dead right. Closed meetings are anathema, and I think they're directly contrary to Big Book. Big Book says that the world of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive, preventingly, it is openly related to all things. And I believe that. I think that closed meetings are an expression of fear, and as far as I'm concerned, they're anathema. But that begs the question. Because at least it's a question that Bill is raising in this article, which is, can the drug addict, let's say in quotes, the pure drug addict, be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I know that's not what everything we discussed tonight, but that's what the question he's raising. He's never said that anybody who has, in effect, what we call a dual addiction could not be a member. If alcohol and drugs are the problem, then they certainly should be a member of AA. Because they have a desire to stop drinking, and that's what they desire. I'm not sure if that clears it up. If it does to me, that's where I like to look at it. Thanks for your sharing.
Yeah, one more shot. I was thinking about the 12th step, where it says that the result of these steps, the spiritual revelation, help alcoholics, but it also says practice these principles in all our affairs.
Yeah.
All our affairs mean all our affairs. It doesn't say some of our affairs. And all our affairs means sometimes we're going to be sitting at a meeting and addicts going to be in there. And so what? We're supposed to practice the principles in all our affairs. And, I'm not perfect at this stuff. But this is what I try to do, and I try to, when I come up on situations like that, like the 12 step sticks out, and the 3rd step with doing God's will, not my own. And that's what I try to do, and I don't do it perfect every day, but I try to do it to the best of my ability. And that means I'm not throwing addicts out of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting for not announcing themselves as an addict or alcoholic. I'm just going to try to help somebody.
Okay.
In all my affairs.
You ladies over here, I had my back turned to you. I didn't know if you had your head. You okay? No?
I just want to say that the Stairway group, we have open meetings. Stairway group. Isn't that correct?
We never test anybody's bona fides in here, do we?
No, we don't. And I also want to say that I personally don't say that I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict because I did a lot of drugs, but it was always alcohol that I would go back to. I think it's because I always felt like it was just because I didn't know enough drug dealers and alcohol's legal and it's on every corner you can get it. But I know that I believe that if alcohol was eliminated, I would have become more of a drug addict. I would have found more dealers or something. And I believe that for a lot of drug addicts that don't think they're alcoholics, I bet you the same is true. Like, they go, well, I really like drugs better. I didn't do much drinking. But if there was no drugs to be found, they probably would have drank a lot more, and recognized their alcoholism. It's like we do these things like to escape, so it's just that because they knew drug dealers, not like me, I didn't know any, but they knew them, so they got to get a lot of drugs.
Well, knowing you, if you didn't have anything else, you would probably lick the skin off of Lupo toe.
I would have. That works, doesn't it? I would have done anything.
He's a bad one, that one.
So everyone just
I heard that works.
Everyone just said, hello, I'm a member of AA. Wouldn't that just solve all the problems? That's what the book tells you to say. It doesn't say alcoholic or addict. I'm a crack addict, but I am a member of AA. That's what the book tells me to say. Wouldn't that just solve all the problems?
Well, we're sorry. We're going to have to ask you to leave. Yes, Howard.
Just one last comment to finish up was the first acronym was F everything and run, and then if one is to find a spiritual path, it's FEAR, face everything and recover. And I think that's where the beauty of both the programs are right on the same track, because that's what the whole thing is about, spiritual path to recovery.
Yeah, well, I need to talk to you about both of those definitions of fear.
How about false evidence?
Yeah, I like that one.
How about the devil?
False evidence.
One more.
I'll make this quick because I see people are getting antsy, but I like what both Tom had to say. Like, I say I'm alcoholic because I'm open. Like, I respect traditions. You know what I mean? I don't even like saying I'm an alcoholic or an addict because I'm not using any substance. I feel the term I'm a member of AA is more fitting when I think about it, but I do agree with what both Toms kind of said. It's people's head trips. Like, I guess I'm fortunate because I don't have these trips. Like, I came into AA like, all right, I'll just equate it to whatever I used, and then that won't be a problem. And now I'm just on the path of being spiritual, and if I keep on that path, I won't even have to worry about what the substance was because I'm not going to put any of it on my body. You know what I'm saying? But it's like Tom says, if there is an issue, and I agree with what he's saying, people are dicks. Is the bottom line. You want to go ahead and kick someone out, make a big deal because he said I'm in hand, and they're like, all right, cool, and maybe pull them up after the meeting and tell them just a little bit about tradition, be like, try to let go of the hang up a little just to be cooler, you know what I mean? But people aren't cool, and like Tom said, the other Tom over there, go to the group and say something, try to open them up, I do like the traditions in place, I don't know. You know what? I enjoy AA being a quote-unquote drug addict because you know what? If Q-tips were addictive, I probably would have a Q-tip problem. Works for me, and I really don't have any trip about it. And I don't understand people that really do either. You know what I'm saying? That's very
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Pay the rent.
Pay the rent. There's the rent.
I don't know.
this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. A moment of silence for those who are still suffering. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Please remember, in our group, we don't say anything after we say amen. Thank you. The Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all for being here.